Rest in peace to all the homies. Yeah, money was the motive. Hood couldn't hold me. 100K made man, suckers looking phony. Yeah, cheers to the real. Good vibes only. Putting in work and rest in peace to all the homies. Yeah, money was the motive.
Peace. What's going down, my people? This is the one and only Mr. Tom Brody. This is the Cheers to the Real podcast. Second part. We got a great guest right now. I'm gonna let him introduce himself. We got a great guest. This is gonna be good, man. Introduce yourself to the people.
What up? My name is Jake Palumbo. From Brooklyn, New York, by way of the great state of Tennessee. People know me for different reasons. Some people may know me as a producer. Some people may know me as an MC. Some people may know me for my quote-unquote day job, which is, a mixing and recording engineer and owning a studio in New York. And then some people don't even follow my music at all. They just know me as the guy who says funny, weird stuff on the internet.
We'll take it as we could get it.
So, whatever reason you're on board, I'm just glad you're on board.
You're on board regardless. The spaceship is now blasting off.
The space lab is now blasting off, exactly.
So let's go backwards. Let's give people a little bio, a little concept of just art or who you are, like how we kind of like grinding and where we came from,
Word. Like I said, I was born and raised in Tennessee. Growing up where I grew up, I was just a little bit, if I'd have been born a couple years later, I would have started with social media and stuff like that at my disposal. But when I started doing music, we were about still maybe a year or two away from the dawn of MySpace. So, an independent artist at that point still had to press up physical CDs and go to clubs and pass out flyers and really do street team work and stuff like that. Which, it's different now with the internet and stuff at your disposal. You can live in Kansas and, get a record out to the world.
So someone may say Tennessee. Big hip-hop scene in Tennessee?
No, I mean, not for the kind of hip-hop I was doing. Not to say they don't like hip-hop, but where I lived was, they just kind of imitated what was popular, with the mainstream at the time. And with the exception of, 3-6 Mafia in Memphis, who had a really dope local thing going on with a cool sound. I always say trying to do underground hip hop in Tennessee at that time was an easy way to starve to death. So, for the first couple years, like you always read these books about, how to make it in the music business. And the advice that they always gave at that time was, well, you need to try to get it popping in your hometown first before you ventured out to the world. But I tried that for a couple years and, like I said, it was an easy way to starve to death. So, 15 years ago, I packed up with $75 to my name and moved to New York City, and began plying my trade.
Big move.
I've been releasing my own music, pressing my own CDs, booking my own DIY tours, doing the whole indie artist thing for a long time. And after I moved to New York, I became an engineer. And that kind of gave my career a second wind in that, A, I was able to feed myself, which is key, but B, so many of the relationships I have with artists that I've either produced for or done songs with, a lot of those relationships began with me being an engineer.
You're bringing something else to the table.
Right, exactly.
I don't need a feature. I'm not.
It's a much easier sell, and I'm very keen on not bum rushing people right away, but the thing is, like, if you just had a great session and your music came out sounding great, it's a lot easier sell for me to be like, hey, can I play you some beats? Or, hey, I'm working on this album. What we got to do to get a joint done, So I've since, it's a 10, 15 year journey that, I'm trying to sum up in a couple sentences, but basically since getting to New York, I've just parlayed all those relationships and continued to develop my fan base, and for the longest time, like, I've survived just off my little niche audience. And over the last few years, we've been able to grow that small number into a slightly larger number.
Right.
But
growth, all about growth.
But again, like you said, being able to bring something else to the table by providing value. Where I can mix your record, master it, record it, produce it. Whatever you need. Like, whenever you add value to a situation, you're going to find more opportunities come your way.
So, odd question. So, coming to New York, what year we're talking?
I moved to New York in 2006, in the fall of 2006. So it's been a little over 15 years.
Culture shock? No.
Not really, because I had been here prior to that. A girl that I dated in Tennessee years ago got a job teaching high school in East New York. So from time to time, I would come up and crash on her couch and then go to Fat Beats and like go to open mics and try to pass out my CDs and, you know, just do the indie rapper thing. So I had been here 10 or 15 times before I moved here and felt pretty acclimated to it and just felt like I've always been a person that I benefit from diving off the deep end and having to sink or swim.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just felt like with New York being the mecca of hip hop and just a city that both doesn't let you half step and I think rewards hustle, it just made the most sense. So
I think more so, at least for hip hop.
At least for, you know,
because
right.
if we had a punk band, we may say
you might do better in California or somewhere. Right, exactly.
Right. It's so you say in 2006. I would say around that time is probably when New York started to lose the flair a little bit.
Well, it was unusual. I will say this. It was odd because when I first moved here, I'm thinking I'm walking into just the epicenter of boom bap bars, rhymes, and all this. And B, I'm self-conscious about my accent. Now, it's weird now because at this point, I've lived in Brooklyn almost half my life, so I do have some Brooklyn-isms in my voice, but I've got this country twang that I can't get rid of.
Right.
And when I first moved here, I was self-conscious about that. But what was bizarre is that when I get here, everybody's rapping over trap beats, and they're putting a fake twang in their voice. You know, and I'd see people like, hey, what it do, man? And I'd be like, where you from? And they'd be like, Bronx, you know, or whatever, you know. So, you know, it was kind of a Twilight Zone thing. So at that point, like, I just get in where I fit in. And it was kind of odd because when I lived in Tennessee, I was almost exclusively listening to kind of boom bap rap. And then in the years since I've been in New York, I've gotten way more in touch with my Southern roots. So even though the music I make is filed under that underground boom bap category, it's very common to see me riding around to Master P or UGK or something like that.
Underground. So you're tuned in underground boom bap Tennessee. What's your source? Underground, I guess, college radio?
You know what it is? It was... Luckily, you know, I said we were when I got into hip hop, we were away from social media, but the internet did exist.
Yeah, of course.
I always say like I'm a old kid / young dinosaur. Meaning like I'm old enough that the first music I ever bought was on cassette, but I'm young enough that like we already had the internet by the time I was in high school. If that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Saying that to say my entire life I've had an obsessive personality with music, and I've always it prepared me to be a crate digger. Yeah, I've always been into going through albums and reading liner notes and finding out who musicians were.
It's a lost art.
You know, it really is. So by the time I got obsessive over hip hop, you know, I was just going to go find it. I was going to drive to record stores. I was going to get on the internet and search. By around 2000 or so, I was probably ordering from Sandbox Automatic and stuff like that, and some of those old websites and stuff like that. But, you know, a hungry music fan is going to find it either way. So
Tennessee might be the few states on the East that I have not had a chance to kind of digest. And
it's great if you don't live there. You know,
touche.
It's wonderful to visit. Good food, nice people, beautiful land, but that's, you know, I didn't find it a good place to live.
I met one female in the most oddest places, and she said, "I'm from Tennessee." I was like, "What are you doing here at 5 a.m?"
Right.
But so you know, we fall in love with hip hop. We make this conversion. We come up to New York, which you may be one in a million, I would think, right? At a certain point, whether it be L.A., a lot of people make the opposite migration, right? They go to Cali or New York. Maybe even now in 2021 and 22, people are doing the South now, maybe Miami.
Atlanta, Miami, yeah.
Right, Atlanta, Miami. So I guess we're old enough that we've seen different states have their little kind of spurt.
Yeah, where the regions have all had their moment in the spotlight, yeah.
And he kind of... Listen, next region might be North Dakota.
It could be Alaska, like at this point, and that's what I mean with the internet leveling the playing field. Is it really doesn't matter where you're based out of. So you know.
So we're going. Just to go backwards to give the listeners a little kind of a vibe when we give the aesthetic, the aesthetic, where this individual is coming from. When we say underground, what are some of the influences of your youth and kind of what you're thinking of hip hop?
Well, what made me fall in love with hip hop? I used to mow my grandmother's lawn, and I would get $20, and I would pretty much always take that $20 to the local music store in my mall and buy music. You know, I again going back from the time I was a kid, I've been an obsessive music buyer, and when I would go to my grandmother's house, she had cable and we didn't at my house. And so I was able to watch MTV at her house, and I, by proxy, would see Yo MTV Raps.
Yes.
So going to the record store, I saw this cassette of Public Enemy Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Yes. And for about 3 weeks, I just sat there like staring at it, debating on buying it. And then finally I did. And I told Hank Shockley this when I met him at the AES convention. I played that tape so much that it actually snapped, like the actual, tape snapped. So shortly now, mind you, that album had been out for several years now.
And if you don't know, the album that he is talking about, people, do the research. Go back, listen to it. I would say it's probably top 10 hip-hop album.
100%. And that album came out in 88. So when that album came out, like I was 6 or 7. So I didn't get on that wave until, this is 96 or 97 at the time I'm buying this album. So I'm floored by Public Enemy. Now, shortly after that, my parents got me Wu-Tang Forever for my birthday that year.
Shout out to your parents.
God bless the dead. They my parents were very I credit my parents a lot for allowing me the freedom. They pretty much had a thing like I could make all the noise I wanted to make with my music because they knew where I was at and they knew I wasn't out, So if I wanted to go record shopping, if I wanted to bang on the drums, if I wanted to, play my instruments, like
all you parents take note.
They facilitated that. So their willingness to put up with that noise is part of the reason I'm here talking to you.
More parents should be this way. If you see your child has a talent and a gift,
right,
cultivate the gift. Okay.
So when I was a young teenager, they got me Wu-Tang Forever, and that just completely solidified a existential need that I needed to be in hip hop.
Right.
And from there, like I said, I just started obsessively learning everything I could learn, buying every record I could buy, and making my own. I'd always made my own music because I played instruments and stuff since I was a kid, but it started out with making beats, and then as time goes on, like you just start having things to say, and I was a horrendously awful rapper when I started out, and just kept doing it out of an earnest love.
Because coming from Tennessee, I guess especially like in the mid '90s, early 2000s, the sound is very regional.
Yeah, well, at that time it really was, and that's what I mean. That's why I've always been
right. Cali artists kind of sound like they're from California.
Exactly. Right. It was very
southern.
regional.
Southern. It
Southern
just sounds
artists sounded
very
southern.
strip clubbish.
New York artists sounded a certain way, and that's what I mean. At that time, the kind of sound I was trying to do was really falling on deaf ears where I lived at. So that's why I said, you know what? Taking my chance at maybe failing in New York has got to be better than this. So. So yeah, that's pretty much where I ended up. But
so you make roots.
Right.
We're in New York. We're making roots.
Right.
Engineering.
And again, I fall into the engineering thing and just started really building relationships from there. Like I worked at a few studios in New York before I eventually opened up my own space. And just kind of put my nose to concrete and, made friends with a bunch of artists. And, I had always had Space Lab recordings from my bedroom in Tennessee because, I never really had any kind of illusion of, that I was going to get signed to a major label one day. So I don't have any stories of like being rejected and stuff like that. So I had always seen the DIY blueprint, whether it was from punk rock groups, you know, pressing their own vinyl and merch, or even in hip hop, whether it was, you know, 3-6 out of Memphis who had a strong underground tape network to it could have been the most underground boom bap 12-inch coming out of New York. Like, I was influenced by that. So from the get-go, I saw this blueprint of, you can do this yourself. You can find your own little niche audience and live off of that.
Amen.
So for about 10 years, I just put nose to concrete and did that. And I made a lot of music and released a lot of music and, you know, put out stuff that didn't do as well and, made records with people that don't make music anymore and, paid my dues, basically. But just consistently tried to keep building up each year.
It's something... On this Cheers of the Real platform, it was definitely designed and created because I've always felt that like-minded artists that are around me are talented as shit. You know, and we're on episode 10 right now, but we're sitting on so much content and so many talented people, and I always tell them, you are amazing. We're just it's overpopulated. It is, right. The consumer is even a rapper now.
Literally.
But it does not mean that you should be rapping.
Right.
And, the swimming pool is kind of full.
It is. And to some degree, that's one, I'm never a person that tries to, dwell on the good old days. Like, I'm very focused on the future. But that's one thing I do miss about how it used to be is that the difficulty created a barrier that only the most dedicated would try to get past.
Give me that. I agree with you. I agree with you with that.
It kind of reserved it for the people that really loved it the most.
And so I'm saying that to say that the platform itself was really designed and built to really give flowers to those that are around me, building this underground thing coming up, and just supporting each other.
Right.
So whether it be the music submissions that I have come up, we kind of review content, we review things. There are not a lot of platforms, especially in New York. I don't think New York supports each other.
It's a little different, yeah.
The South, other places do. I just feel like New York is so it's just really strange. It's really like, it's one of those things that you scratch your head. Did you? So I'm bringing that up to say, did you see the comment with Conway?
I did. You're talking in terms of the radio?
Yeah.
I actually made a video about this on Instagram a couple days ago. I'm not going to comment on the debate between those people, but what I will say is that a lot of artists may not understand that terrestrial daytime FM radio, as much as we would like to believe otherwise, it does not exist to break artists. It does not exist to promote culture. It exists to sell advertising space. And that advertising space is targeted towards a demographic of people who are in the car taking the kids to soccer or, going to work or
that is the
going
most
to buy groceries.
Basic way to say it.
And that particular platform for artists really only fits a very small percentage.
Right.
But with that said, there are tons of artists, including everyone involved in this argument, who make nice livings completely without having to worry about being on FM radio rotation in the daytime.
Right.
And, we have to think like, most of the music is like lighthearted pop music that is
should be.
It should be because
from
it's
9 to 5.
It's marketed for daytime hours.
Correct.
People got kids in the car.
I agree with you.
And my music doesn't fit that playlist. So how can I be mad at like Wendy's not serving sushi? You know what I mean? Like if I go to Wendy's and they don't have a California roll for me, like,
sorry, champ, we don't got it.
You know what I mean? Meanwhile, there's a delicious sushi restaurant 2 doors down.
So for the listeners, just to keep you up to speed, Conway, big time artist, New York, was kind of felt a certain way that New York DJs just don't support New York artists. So he kind of went on. They're calling it a rant.
Sure.
So just so I keep everyone up to speed. Let's play the rant just so they can kind of see what we're talking about.
Still staying afloat, bro. I'm not missing no fucking meals, nigga. And I ain't sold 1 million records. What happened to that being applaudable? But them niggas that you jacking and talking about sold millions of records and da-da-da-da, sell they shows out. World, you was wrong. You talking about, yeah, they must be Michael Jackson, like they sold world tours. I actually did. 2 months ago, I just came off a world tour, sold out.
I don't know.
You know what I'm saying, bro?
Comes off real angry, huh?
Again, this ain't no attack, bro. It's no beat. I don't feel no energy negative in my heart towards none of the niggas. Like, I just love me and Flex.
You can lower him. So,
unfortunately,
unfortunately, this is... I can see frustration, but I guess at a certain point, we're all frustrated.
Well, every artist is frustrated.
Right.
I mean, that's something that never goes away.
Right.
You know, my whole philosophy is based around not dwelling on the negative and trying to find a solution. So
Right.
whether it's, you know, mainstream not, you know, whether it's the mainstream not taking to my music, whether it is streaming, you know, all these problems that come in your way as an artist, like, complaining about that problem is not going to make it go away. So
I agree.
I just have a almost an allergy to even dwelling on it. And whereas, like, I'm okay, streaming payouts are low. Well, let me find a solution to make streaming work for me. I'm going to use it as a fan builder. And then once I build X amount of fans, I'm going to sell 15% of that fan base a T-shirt.
You're on the money.
At $30 a piece. You
on
feel
the
me?
money.
So
you're on the money. Mind you, the person complaining is already sitting at a certain position.
Well, I mean, that's what, you know.
That's what makes it ironic.
You know, and he's a great example of being able to make a great living and be in a great position on your own terms, and, you know, completely avoiding these pitfalls in the mainstream. And the other thing too is a lot of people don't realize, and I said this in the video I posted the other day, that, you know, the programming at Hot 97 in New York is programmed by committee in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the headquarters of iHeartRadio, formerly Clear Channel. And, you know, even Ebro, the program director, does not have final say in what gets played. He
Absolutely not.
Acts as the liaison between the research team and the suits.
I'm sure Ebro's personal playlist
is probably different than what's on the
would
radio.
be a lot different,
Right.
you know.
So I just think understanding these things and is much healthier, and just try to find a workaround.
That's a very,
you know?
Listen, credit to you guys, you alleged gatekeepers. That's a stressful spot to sit there probably get millions of submissions, people haggling you all day, play, and there's nothing to reciprocate the love.
Right.
Well, listen, shout out to Rosenberg. I do give you credit. You do show a lot of love to the underground. You do play a lot of up and coming. I give you credit for that.
Yeah.
But, you know, end of the day, listen, if your grind is that serious and you're out here really, really networking and you're really building, and people know if it's a labor of love, man. People know if you're putting out quality content. People know. And people know when you're fucking jerking the work and you're putting out these fucking fraudulent fake remixes. You know, the 10th remix with the 10th different beat. Like, come on, man. We heard it already. How many times are you going to run ads on this rubbish, you know? How do you feel with so how do you feel where music is going? How do you feel like how do you feel where we are with hip hop right now?
You know, kind of on a similar note, I tend to just try to focus on the good. You know, the mainstream playlist right now is not what I listen to.
Gotcha.
But with that said, there's more freedom than ever was to live completely outside of that, and it not matter what's popular on the radio. So, you know, I remember, you know, going back to when I first began this journey, you know, 15, 17 years ago. We have so many more resources at our disposal than we used to. And the wall, there used to be this kind of like wall between signed artists and unsigned artists, or, you know, major and independent. And, you know, I did another video on this topic on IG a few weeks ago. You know, I call it the lemonade stand theory, is that with that wall being eliminated, you know, where there, you know, the major labels have all merged into one conglomerate, and, you know, 80% of artists now qualify as being independent. there is no them versus us anymore. There's just every artist has their lemonade stand, and how well that artist does, depends on how well they operate their lemonade stand. Now, your lemonade stand is your music, your merchandise, your music videos, your social media experience, your interviews,
your customer service,
exactly, like all that. So I think it's a better time than ever in the, I just exist in this little world where, like, every day I open up my Instagram and there's people telling me, hey, I love this. I think it's awesome.
Love Jake's. This is what you need. You need more friends around you like Jake right now, because he's giving you positive reinforcement. The cup is half full, not half empty.
I mean, in the midst of apocalypse wow that we're living in right now, I try to find the silver lining. Yeah. But really, though, like, it's one of those things that, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, like years ago when I was a teenager, for example. To hear music you liked, you had to wait until MTV played that video or the radio played that song, or, you got to your car and you could put in this tape. You can literally play whatever you want, and you can deep dive into the most weirdo, micro niche, whatever you like. So I think the freedom, I'm so able to ignore music that I don't like and just focus on the music that I do like, that I think it's been a better time than ever. Like, I'm selling more merch, I'm streaming more music, I'm having more fun now than I was 15 years ago. So, I feel optimistic about the future.
And you've been super consistent putting out. This is how we kind of linked up. Or you putting out a lot of content, and wearing both hats. That's another kudos. I know it's super hard. Which one do you prefer? Production?
They're different. If I had to pick one, I guess I'm a producer first. But because the thing is when I make beats, like, it's complete and total just creativity and freedom. I just literally sit down, do whatever I feel like at that moment, and then put it into a pile, and it gets adopted and becomes a song later. Now, when I'm rhyming, I'm racking my brain, and I'm sitting there like, oh, God, I'm just sweating, trying to come up with the illest lines because, I feel that I need to uphold a high standard of what I'm saying in these bars.
Lyricism.
As time goes on, and especially as a rapper gets older, you have to work harder to not be stagnant and to evolve and grow while still sounding like a classic version of yourself. And so I'm saying that to say that, like, I have to sweat a lot more and rack my brain. And I'm like that character on Sesame Street where he beat his head into the piano. Don Music, I think was his name. So, like, that requires a lot more sweat, whereas, like, the making beats and producing is a lot more just free form, having fun, doing whatever.
I will admit, the production end is something I've been getting into later in life.
Right.
I do agree with you. I'm able to just wing it, so to speak.
Just do whatever you feel like.
Hey, let's put these bongos here.
Right.
I think it sounds good. Similar to painting. I do a lot of canvas shows also. Sure. You could just free-flowing, whatever you want to do. I think the artistry end, we're in a place where people are chasing trends. Trends win. Whatever's trending kind of wins. It is what it is. And I will admit, there's a lot of drill beats, trap beats, even the subcategory of Latin drill, right. Latin trap. There's some amazing production. Amazing production. But I think to each his own. I wanted to pull up one or two of your visuals.
Yeah, we could play the latest single, Big Top Clown Circus. Yeah, with Craig G.
There we go. And that's another thing that I want the listeners to understand is that you have amazing collabos, and you're putting out good quality content, which I think is most important.
Word, yeah. I've done a few different albums where it's me on production with one MC, like I did. Well, actually, if you want to go ahead into this video, this is off the new album Plant Based Libtard, and it features Craig G, the Juice Crew.
Yo, shout out to Craig G.
Big shout out to Craig G.
What's up, man? What's up, man? Jake Palumbo.
It's a legend right there, Craig G, man.
Craig, what up? got a bug problem. We either talk or do the Rugas. Organic pescatarian, you eat food from who and you make my collard greens, please don't put no ham at it. Stage tell a shorty that we good without a lamb in it. Shawshank Redemption, I will get it with a chisel. You sold the steak, you did not sell the sizzle. Sex pistol, great rock and roll swindle. Call my words on a tablet like an Amazon Kindle. When Jake and Craig spit it, it feels like you found purpose. The rap game's the big top, we hate the clown circus. The frequency is peaking, watch the way we drown circuits. Rising to the top, the only way to sound surface. When Jake and Craig spit it, feels like you found purpose. The rap game's the big top, we hate the clown circus. The frequency is peaking, watch the way we drown circuits. Rising to the top, the only way to sound surface. Twist, fall, and stumble, Craig G, Jake Palumbo. For white collar criminals, cats that serve bundles. I see you mesmerized by sun, so watch me flare up like the diamonds on my neck of Jake's $50 haircut. Backstage smoking that funk, I'm antisocial. I keep a fake number to give the music hopefuls. Hold up, you're saying too much, you're gonna blow up. Without the alterations to have the game sold up. Archie Bunker, Al Bundy, 4 touchdowns in one game. Better duck for cover, I'm accurate when the gun aims. Never trick on dumb dames. Me, I like to shun fame. Keep the hype to yourself, not interested in lung pain. Yours must be hurting cause you speak a mile a minute. I ain't respond once and you still don't know your limits. Every time I go out, people be ruining my high. And that's why I'm the master of the Irish goodbye. When Jake and Craig spit it, it feels like you found purpose. The rap game's the big top, we hate the clown circus. The frequency is peaking, watch the way we drown circuits. Rising to the top, the only way to sound surface. When Jake and Craig spit it, feels like you found purpose. The rap game's the big top, we hate the clown circus. The frequency is peaking, watch the way we drown circuits. Rising to the top, the only way to sound surface. Rap now is a circus of clowns.
I love the visuals too. I'm originally from Coney Island, so anytime I see those old throwback clowns,
I live in Gravesend. Like, I'm 5 minutes from Coney Island.
Nice. Back in the days, that neighborhood used to be so racist.
I bet.
Super duper, like over the top racist back in the days. I love it. Yo, the visuals are great. The production was by you?
Yeah, I produced a whole album.
Fire.
Word, I appreciate it, man.
So I'm curious. I want to ask you. I mean, it's not a trick question or anything, but has race ever been an issue for you in hip hop?
Really, no. You know, I've always been conscious of the fact, like, okay, on my new album, there's a song called "Exit Stage Left," and the last 4 bars of that song, I say, "Sipping hot brew in a thermos. I have never been slighted for the hue of my dermis. I just try to make a valid contribution, do my best. Knickerbocker Times Square, I'm a 5-star guest." Now, that is me showing acknowledgement and reverence to the fact that I am a guest in the house of hip-hop. And for the last 15 years, I have felt like a welcome guest. I have felt like I've been given a comfortable guest room with clean linens, fresh towels, and told that there was food in the refrigerator if I got hungry.
Amen.
So I'm saying that to say that I really don't have, you know, I've gotten flack for being Southern. I've gotten flack for being weird. I've gotten flack for being outspoken in my opinions. But as far as, you know, any kind of racially, you know, rooted flack, there was one guy at a show in Washington, D.C. one time that said, "Okay, Eminem." And I think there was one guy on Instagram one time that called me a culture vulture, but that's really it.
Is that not the worst?
Well,
Culture vulture.
But here's the thing: like, if what I just said was my experience, like, I've had an abundantly easy time.
You brush that off.
Now, if you held a gun to my head and said, "Why do you think you've had an abundantly easy time?" I think it's I've always tried to show acknowledgement to the fact that this is a art form and a culture that was created by black folks with heavy contributions from, you know, the Latin community as well. I have always tried to wear on my sleeve that I respect that. I've tried to wear on my sleeve that I am here to contribute to the pot and not just take from it. I've tried to wear on my sleeve that I'm not somebody that's going to use hip-hop for the coolness factor and then turn my back on it when, you know, I get some attention.
but you're conscious of it, and that's the beauty of it. I think there are people out here floating in the universe, whether they be in Germany or Russia or that they're not conscious of that.
Right.
It gives it a layer of, I acknowledge it, I'm paying homage, but the artistry of it will always shine. Because ultimately, people could say what they want about Eminem. He got skills.
100%.
So I had AL Skills. I had Scam Up, who Scam kind of worked on his artwork.
Scam is on Solving Cases album with me and Elder Sensei, actually. Shout out to Scam.
Shout out to Scam. So, we were talking. He goes, listen, if Eminem was a few shades darker, nothing and none of this would be a conversation. And I said, you're right.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I've ever had any kind of hurdle to
because you have skills.
Well, I try my very best to, and I work, and that's the other. I think that's the other thing too, is that skills. I've always tried to show that I am constantly trying to improve at my craft, and that it's important to me to leave behind a contribution to this culture that means so much to me.
Mm-hmm.
But saying that to say, I mean, the other thing too is that if you are a white MC, I think it is your responsibility to speak up when injustice happens and to make sure, because in the last few years we've seen so many shades of fuckery happen, whether it was, people you thought were allies starting to show some weird shades of colors, to out and out, MAGA rap. Like, there's rappers right now waving the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
And
have in the past. There's nothing new.
You know what I mean?
In the past.
Right. So, it's very important to me to make it abundantly clear where I stand on these issues. And, it is my responsibility to speak up, and all throughout my album, Plant-Based Libtard, I say it in the opening to Listen Close. I said, the underground's full of diet racism Trump shit. And, that's part of what titled my album, was that, back during the election season, I had a bunch of social media posts that got a ton of shares. And anytime, like, say if I criticized police murder, police murdering some unarmed black man, or, if I criticized Kyle Rittenhouse, or if I stood up for women's rights or something like that, I would have this swarm of all these comments from, people calling me a libtard. And I expect it from the people in the Oakley sunglasses and, the American flag do-rag and all that. But then I start getting it from, like, other underground rappers. And, there's this, like, whole undertone of, radical conservatism, and in some cases, racism, that unfortunately, works its way in. So I just am of the opinion that I don't want to leave any kind of gray area in these departments. And because I've taken the time to do that, hip-hop has been abundantly kind to me. And I'm a person that, like, I'm not going to disrespect that by not wiping my feet in the door. Like, I'm not going to put
Amen.
When I'm here in your house right now, I'm not going to put my feet up on the table. You know what I mean? So
I remember Lord Jamal, I kind of made that reference. But listen, I do think that you need to, regardless of color, you should be paying homage to the culture regardless.
Period, yeah.
I think if, regardless of the country you're from or the generation, you should be paying homage to your lineage, to your great-grandfather. Where does your great-great-grandfather come? So it's the same thing with music. Because the odd thing is, I think with our contemporaries in jazz, most jazz artists who are really studying the art form know the greats.
Right.
I think with hip-hop, most people get into hip-hop, they have money, they have aspirations of being successful, but they don't know the greats.
Right.
Or who we perceive to be the greats. Right? That's a whole different debate.
It
right?
does seem like jazz and rock and, a lot of other genres.
Blues. I mean, listen.
There's more reverence, yeah.
A blues artist who steps into the game right now knows, his holy grail. He knows his top five. He knows Miles Davis. He knows who, they know. Hip-hop, I think we tend to disregard it as it's not an art form, and it's very recyclable, it's very washed, and it's shameful because you have artists from the late 80s, early 90s who will never see the type of money that artists are seeing now.
Right.
And it goes back 360. What we were saying is, you have a lot of artists eating very well,
right,
paying off their mortgage note,
right, keeping groceries in the fridge,
but yet the plate to them is still half empty.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, I gratitude over attitude is one of the things, because that's the other thing too, is that in the music business you don't have any job security.
Right.
So your only job security is the experience people have with you. Like, the studio session I had today before I came here, they have to bop out the door feeling like they made a hit and they had a great session, for them to come back and book more time with me. Mm-hmm. I have to show up on time for my interview here, you know what I'm saying? If I want to get booked again to come back when my next album is out, So I'm saying that to say that, like, it really doesn't behoove you to be a jerk or to be difficult to work with in any case, really, because, there's no guarantee that anyone is going to care tomorrow. Like, I've been able to make a living at this, for completely paid bills off all my musical hustles for about 14 years now. And like every year I always wonder, like, is this it? Like, is the jig almost up? And all I can do to guarantee my employment, for lack of a better term, tomorrow is just to make sure that the experience I give people is a good one. Is the album I drop, does it satisfy the fans? Does how I treat my peers in the music business?
You hit it on the head. I think we both understand that these opportunities don't come all the time.
Right.
Customer service, your reputation are key. People know if you're a flake. People know if you're unreliable. I think, especially in the New York underground sector, how we're all coming up is everyone is making a good living. Everyone is grinding, but it all starts from the root. It is a labor of love. 100%. So younger artists that are listening need to understand you're not just going to overnight be this great sensation across the nation.
No.
It's still, even if people are co-signing it and there's and you have talent, you still have to have the motivation and the labor.
100%. Like, it's all powered by that.
Right.
Like, if I didn't genuinely love, doing this, like, I would have a job with benefits and a 401k and I would be off on Saturday and Sunday. And you know what I mean? Like, I would get 2 weeks of paid vacation a year.
Amen.
And you know
Amen.
what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be calling up record labels,
Right.
threatening them to get my payment for this mix or whatever it is.
There should be a 401k for retired rappers.
There should be.
Well, I think no, honestly, I think for labels, if the artists fell through and kind of gave their part of the contract.
Yeah.
You made X amount of millions on them, right? You made 2.7.
I think that's fair if the label's going to keep the master in perpetuity, yeah.
I think so, right?
If the label's going to keep the master.
Especially if you're keeping my master.
Right.
If you're keeping my master, we doubled up. I made your money. You made your money. This was a good agreement. I should have
some kind of residual retirement would be fair.
Totally. Yeah. I should be able to cash out at whatever my age is, 37, and I have lifetime, whether it be my little AKA pension.
Right.
And I'm good. My dental, my medical. Let's put that in the works.
It's true. The thing is like realizing that, it's
life shit. That's life shit.
Well, it put the notion in my head that, like, I have to create all that for myself.
Right.
Because even doing well in the music business and making a living and all that, there is no 401k.
There is no
retirement.
401k.
There's no, there's none of that.
When you got to get your tooth pulled, you're spending that money.
You're coming out of pocket, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And do your due diligence, everyone out there. Get your insurance. Stop playing games, man. You need insurance, man, because it helps.
It does. It definitely does.
So I sum this all to say that being an independent artist, there are no guarantees. Mm-hmm. So I pulled up an article just for conversation purposes that there has been a trend of top-tier artists that we know and love have been selling their publishing rights flat out.
That has been happening a lot lately.
I'm blown away on the list of artists that have sold.
No, I mean, it's, as you can see there, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young. The thing about it is this, and I think this really plays a key, is that The people that are buying, like, let's forget about the artists that are selling their catalogs right now. Think about the people that are buying these catalogs. They're not individuals.
No.
They're multi-trust corporations. Because
right.
here's the thing, is that the world is starting to wake up to the notion that catalogs pay money pretty much in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. Like, people are like, how could Bruce Springsteen sell his catalog? You know, but here's the thing. Bruce Springsteen will not physically be alive long enough to reap the full benefits of his catalog.
Correct.
Because, 75 years from now, they're still going to be listening to Born in the USA or whatever, and
Dave, let's pull up that other list that we have. But you're 100% on the money.
So I'm saying that to say is that what you're starting to see is that, these catalogs are being bought by companies who are going to use them as a long-term asset. You know what I mean? It's not just some rich guy that's...
The licensing on those
the
fucking
licensing,
things. Holy
the publishing.
So go back up. So we have... So this is a quick list of just recent people that kind of sold off. So we said Bruce Springsteen. Let's see who else over here. We got...
Aerosmith.
Fucking Aerosmith, which Bruce Springsteen alone is mind-blowing. Tina Turner, that's worth a pretty penny. What did Tina get over here? 50 mil?
Yeah.
Why would she not cash out at 50 mil? She's already like, what, in her 80s?
Well, that's what I mean. A lot of these artists are over 60, and in some cases over 70 and 80. You know what I mean?
Beach Boys, these guys are in their 80s.
They've got to be close to 80 years old. So it's like, in that case, it makes sense for them.
Motley Crue?
Right.
Really?
If
hold on a second.
Yeah.
Wait Dave, wait a second. 90 million for these guys?
Well, I'm pretty sure Dr. Feelgood is a diamond album. I mean, it's...
yeah?
Yeah. I would imagine,
Whoa.
But yeah, so basically, I'm saying that to say that, like, a catalog, to truly reap the benefits of the catalog, it can't be owned by a person. It has to be owned by a company, because the wealth that will come from that catalog is going to be accrued over a couple hundred years.
That's lifetime wealth.
It's lifetime, right? So, most of these artists aren't going to be alive long enough to reap all that money anyway.
Just makes sense. Listen, if you've worked your ass off to get where you are, to even get successful, you want to enjoy the value of what you obtained. And I think a lot of people, listen, you're in your late 30s, your 40s, cash out.
I mean,
cash out, man. Cash out. It just makes sense. I mean, I think the latest I think he sold off Bob Dylan 300 million. I hate to say it, but 300 million and you're in your late 60s or 70s is going a long, long way.
Now, with that said, if you're a younger artist, I would offer the opposite advice. I would try to hold on to your catalog and not sell it until you were, getting up there.
Especially with your lifestyles.
Right? But like I said, for, most of these people are legacy artists who,
Well said, legacy artists, yes.
I can't, if I'm 80 years old and, I realistically have maybe another 10 years left as a breathing organism.
Neil Young just sold also.
I can't blame them. And from a company standpoint, for hedge funds and, I don't know if that's the right word, but...
Well, look, you hit it on the head. So Rolling Stone report...
the Wall Street firms,
yeah. Wall Street firm, $230 billion in assets.
Right.
Holy shit.
So, yeah, the long-term money that can be made en masse from these...
So this firm, they get together. It's a firm of, X amount of people worth X amount of dollars. They say, what we're going to do? We're going to buy Motley Crue.
Right.
We're all in on Motley Crue,
Right, we're going to buy their catalog. Right.
We're fucking all in on Motley Crue, dude. Listen, to each his own. To me, it's mind-blowing, and I bring this up for younger artists who are listening. Know your worth, know your value. Independence is king, because even for a lot of these artists who are selling it, this is proving it to you. Had they not owned their own masters, had they not own it and be an integral part of what they're doing as an artist, they wouldn't be able to cash out right there and right then.
Right. They would have no assets.
They would
to
have
cash.
nothing.
Right.
You have no value and you can't negotiate. And if you have no power, there's nothing to negotiate.
No, there is nothing, right? So no, it's definitely as long as you can, during the formative years and during the growth years, I would definitely try to hang on to as much ownership as you're able to.
Amen, man. Amen. Independence is king, my people. Independence is king. So I want people to hone in. I want people to tune in. This man has been grinding. He's been working. It's a labor of love. He's out here. Any new projects we're working on?
I'm still pushing 2 albums. I've, as a rapper, I've got Plant-Based Libtard out now. That album is almost 6 months old, and we're a few days away from hitting 500,000 on Spotify on that one.
Nice, very
so
nice.
I really appreciate
Congrats,
everybody
brother.
that has been tuning into that album. As a producer, I've also got the Solving Cases album with El Da Sensei from the Artifacts.
Yes.
That album, that came out before Plant-Based Libtard, but that album was a good breakthrough as far as
another dope MC. Shout out.
L's got a 25-year legacy in hip hop, so the project I made with him was able to turn what I do on to a lot of people who didn't know it before. So both those albums I'm still pushing. We've got more music videos coming from both those albums. As far as new stuff coming up, I've got several more albums, where it's me on the beats and one MC on the mic. Me and Lex the Hexmaster have got an album coming out at the end of the summer.
Nice.
Me and my man Westside Ward have got an album. Me and Craig G just started working on an EP. I've got an instrumental album called The Food's Great, but the Service is Terrible.
Love the name.
A bunch of different stuff. I eventually will start working on another, Jake Palumbo album.
Instrumental albums, I'm doing the same thing myself. I think it has a different life, different entity. It walks, it breathes.
Yeah, definitely.
People gravitate, they come for work.
And also, too, like a lot of times people like to listen to that stuff just to vibe or study or
Amen.
Whatever they're doing. So, that'd be my second instrumental album. My first one was Transient Ischemic Attack in 2020. But yeah, me and Q Unique, like I said, was working on some stuff.
Dope.
And just staying busy as a mix engineer. I just finished working on the Beat Miners album. That's finished and will be coming out soon.
Classic.
Great lineup
Shout out
on
to
that
Beat
album.
Miners.
Oh, big shout out to Beat Miners.
Classic.
I work with them regularly. So yeah, I'm always working on something, whether it's rapping, producing, or engineering, or trying to educate people on my Instagram.
Listen, he's a reflection of staying busy and staying productive, And I think, listen, you got to look at yourself in the mirror and saying, if I'm not bumping into people, it's because you're not out there grinding and hitting the streets.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the last time I saw you
was a Doc Ock show, maybe. The Doc Ock Memorial.
Yeah.
I
Rest in
say.
peace to Doc Ock.
Rest in peace to Doc Ock, man. What
that was
a
big loss.
He was booked a lot of my shows in New York City.
And again, these are the people, which is why this podcast is going to fill the voids. But these are the people that we don't have a lot of people who love the culture, who are putting it forward and giving the flowers and paying homage to the artists. We have podcasts and we have platforms, but they're dealing with these other top tier, real bougie and bougetto kind of like they're in a different lane. Being an artist myself, I know this is a labor of love, man, and I think people around us respect it. They know who the real lyricists are. They know where the real talent is.
Right.
You can't jerk the work. People know when you're fucking around, and people know when you're putting it in. You know what I mean? But any new shows coming up? Any new actual live shows?
I am in Portland, Maine on August 26th.
Dope city.
That's the next show coming up. I'm in Portland, Maine, August 26th. And then I usually throw a show in New York on my birthday. My birthday is at the end of September, so
nice.
I don't have a venue yet, but there probably will be a birthday show.
Tune in for that.
So, but yeah, the pandemic slowed down my touring a bit. Unfortunately, it's a lot of venues closed, and a lot of
never to be seen again.
A lot of show promoters ended up having to get other jobs, and it was it definitely the live music industry period.
Listen, people think New York is the Mecca, right? The city that never sleeps. I can tell you, a lot of venues have closed down.
It really has.
So if I live in Tennessee, North Dakota,
right,
Wyoming, and I'm an amazing lyricist, I know I have talent. If I don't have outlets here in New York, where are the outlets over there?
That happens. Sometimes artists reach out to me and ask me about getting New York shows, and I'm like, I can point you to a few people, but it's a lot slimmer pickings than it used to be.
You need to be plugged in.
And I've always focused, like I would, do shows in New York a few times a year, but I generally tended to focus my touring on, little towns off the beaten path.
That's the way to go.
Because a lot of times, like if you live in, say, Flagstaff, Arizona, there may not be that many hip-hop shows that come to your town in a month's time, you know what I mean? So a lot of times, even if you're not like a major artist, you can still make great fans that way.
Doing the same thing with the artwork. So, just taking the canvases, taking the DJ, the instrumentals, and then bringing it to like Tampa, bringing it to D.C., bringing it to certain places that probably normally don't have like the art curation parties and shit like that, But again, my people, I want you to tune in. This is Conic Underground MC, New York artist, New York native at this point,
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
But tune in, he's a like-minded artist. He's out here grinding. It's a labor of love, man. Tune in. It was a pleasure having you, my brother.
Yo, thank you for having me, man. Great build.
Yeah, man, always, man. But listen,
already.
We're all supporting each other because this is what it is, man. This is the one and only Mr. Tom Brody. Cheers to the Real Podcast. This is episode 10. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
Tom Brody. Screaming, cheers to the real. Good vibes only. Putting in work and recipes to all the homies. Yeah, money was the motive. Hood couldn't hold me. 100K made man, suckers looking phony. Yeah, cheers to the real. Good vibes only. Putting in work and recipes to all